Good day and welcome to SCO BRICS Insight, where we look at what's really going on in the world of the BRICS. Now today I want to talk again about Russia, the EU, the US, gas supplies and LNG. Now despite all the rhetoric by the US President Donald Trump and the EU head Ursula von der Leyen about ending Russian gas supplies to Europe, it's not only not stopping, but it's growing, and it will continue to grow for at least the next 6 months. Now, in the context of a historic reduction in pipeline gas supplies from Russia due to the ending of the gas transit via Ukraine, Europe continues to buy large quantities of Russian gas through the importation of LNG, so buying from Russia is the only available option. Now, the reasons for this and the likelihood of this avenue of supply being closed are as follows. Now, according to the analytical company Kepler, EU countries purchased 837,000 tonnes of liquefied gas in the first 2 weeks of January alone. Now, this represents a substantial increase compared to the same period last year when purchases stood at 760,000 tonnes. Now, despite the sanctions and the rhetoric, it's clear why there's such a strong demand for Russian gas, because on the morning of January the 1st, pipeline deliveries from the last remaining route through the Ukraine ceased. The agreement between Gazprom and Naftogaz had expired, and Kiev was belligerent and refused to extend it. Now, Ukrainian transit previously provided Europe with around 15 billion cubic meters of gas per year. Now it can receive Russian gas through the pipeline only indirectly through the Turkish stream, which has got a comparable capacity. Now, the pipeline capacity of Turkish stream is operating at the maximum level, so there's no possibility of increasing the pumping rate there. Now, there's also serious considerations about the safety of that pipeline, especially after the attack by NATO's Ukrainian proxies on the compressor station in Krasnodar. No doubt they will try that again, because the supply would harm Hungary and Slovakia, who are opposed to the sanctions, and they get gas through Turkish stream. Now, before I continue, I'd like to make an appeal. If you like and enjoy my videos, you can help me fund the channel and my website, scobricsinsight.com, to further develop it, and you can do this by making a small donation, which is done by clicking on the thanks button at the bottom of the screen. Everybody who donates does get a personal thank you from me, and I'm thanking you now just for watching. Now, there is LNG available in the world, but even in the market there's complexities. To meet the demand, the EU will need to import 10 million tonnes of LNG, which is more than 10% than it had last year, according to analysts from the MST Marquee Investor platform. Now, the obvious source of this gas is the United States, which is openly pursuing its goals of energy dominance in Europe and beyond. Now, even before taking office, the US President Donald Trump threatened the EU with a trade war if it didn't increase its purchases of American oil and gas. Indeed, there's a growing movement to buy American and cease trade with Russia, according to Ursula von der Leyen, and she's said this on a number of occasions. However, it should be noticed that these political statements are not actually an accurate reflection of the current state of affairs in the industry. You could actually say that most politicians are in dire need of a proctologist, as they're so full of shite. Anyway, in the US, for instance, the production and supply of hydrocarbons is primarily managed by private enterprises, which are not obligated to comply with the directives of the head of state of the United States, Donald Trump, the president. Those companies' primary objective is to maximize their revenue streams and profitability, and to that end, they enter into long-term contracts for the supply of LNG, with the substantial volumes allocated and the facilities constructed specifically for this purpose. I mean, long and medium-term contracts account for around 70 to 80% of the total production, with Asian countries having the priority due to the lack of reserves and pipelines, and they've gone into these long-term contracts. European companies have a significantly smaller share of the contracts, primarily due to price differences and logistical challenges, with the main terminals being concentrated in the US on the US Gulf Coast. Now, until recently, cheap Russian pipeline gas had a significant impact on the European economy. In fact, the German economy was built on cheap gas since the 1960s from the Soviet Union. Now the remaining LNG volumes, around 20-25%, are at the spot market to the highest bidder, in which Asia is also one of the leaders. Rapidly growing economies who are not tied to the so-called green agenda require additional energy resources and are prepared to pay for them. And it's the spot prices that shape the gas market, which are unpredictable due to a number of factors. Now, Europe is most closely connected to the short-term market since it's only recently got itself out of behind dealing with Russia. I mean, during the winter of 2021, amid the energy crisis at the Title Transfer Facility exchange, the price of gas reached over 2,000 per thousand cubic metres, and in summer of 22 it exceeded even 3,000. That's it. By the spring of 2023, the market had collapsed down tenfold to $300 per thousand cubic metres. It's around that mark today. Of course, there's also alternative suppliers, with the US, Qatar and Australia being the market leaders apart from Russia. However, the availability of the free gas volumes is limited, and concerns regarding prices and logistics. Australia is primarily focused on the Asian market. Qatar supplies EU with around 15 billion cubic metres of gas, which is about 10% of the market share. However, Qatar has indicated that it may cut off exports to Europe if they impose the fines on the state-owned company for its non-environmental activities and contrary to the new green agenda in the So it appears that Russia is now the only viable alternative, and that underscores the rationale behind the remarkable surge in LNG supplies, despite the higher cost of LNG compared to pipeline gas. I mean, last year Europe purchased a record volume of 17.8 million tonnes from Russia. Notably, the monthly record was broken on 3 occasions, in January, March and then last December. Now, the ongoing winter season suggests the potential for a sustained increase in purchases, according to Alexander Frolov, who's a Director General of the Institute for National Energy in Russia. However, it should also be noted that this trend may not continue, as there are potential risks. 2024 was successful for a number of reasons. Primarily regard to transport cost. European and Asian prices are roughly equivalent, but when taken into account the additional cost of transporting to Europe, it's more profitable for Russia to export to Asia. Secondly, a significant export plant, Yamal LNG, increased its production and optimised its tanker system. Now they reload from ship to ship, not in Europe, but near the Russian northern port of Murmansk. And that's led to an increase in the number of Arctic-class tankers working in the area, contributing to faster export speeds. However, new European restrictions on some Russian LNG products, in particular Gazprom's LNG Portoya and Krajogaz Vostok or LNG of Novatek, will come into force in March. Now, while the volumes are not that significant, it's still a major negative of the market. So Yamal LNG may reduce supplies to the European market, since their tankers will also be under sanction, so they will just tend to go to Asia. So it's a bit early to say what the impact will be, but it's possible by the end of 2025. Russian supplies to Europe will certainly possibly decrease, or they may remain at its current levels, but we'll have to see. Now, in this situation, European legislators, despite their bias, understand that it's impossible to act rashly. They need to show that reserves in the underground storage, which have dropped to 64%, and need to be there. The volume of pumping has now exceeded 900 million cubic meters per day for the first time in over a year, according to Gas Infrastructure Europe. So for European buyers, when purchasing Russian gas, economics are the fundamental. I mean, the EU is currently experiencing a significant energy crisis due to Ukraine's decision to halt the transit of Russian gas. So in this context, the European Union is strategically prioritising Russian LNG as a crucial lifeline to stop and avoid exacerbating the crisis and preventing the spiralling increase in prices, according to Tamara Safonova, who's professor at the Institute of Economics at the Russian Presidential Academy. Well, while the likelihood of losses during the incoming winter period is low, blackouts, concerns have been raised regarding the potential challenges in filling the underground storage facilities during the summer months, which is what's absolutely necessary. So this is the reason why Europe is moving away from direct sanctions on Russian LNG. Now, one of the packages under review suggests that the possibility of introducing national level bans by individual states, like the Baltics, etc. But it does not rule out the possibility of Europe facing a serious gas shortage in the near future. And that's going to depend on the weather and wind generation. And we all know how unreliable the wind is. I mean, thus the issue is that cold is not local. If it's very cold in Europe, it covers all of Europe, and it also moves into Asia. And that's where the Europeans will have to compete with the Asians for gas. And the share of short-term contracts that are difficult to predict is going to rise, particularly given the unique nature of American business practices. So this has increased the uncertainty in the European gas market. So it's certainly not going to really reject the Russian LNG. And it's no coincidence that one of the sanctions packages that includes a ban on transshipment to Asia means that the volumes that go to Europe stay there. Now, at the same time, it's important to distinguish between the political rhetoric and business interests. And the gas companies want to buy Russian gas, and Russia wants to sell it. It's just business. That's the way the world goes. Consequently, it's anticipated that business deals will continue as usual, and any discussions about banning Russian LNG will remain within the political discussion and rhetoric. But the reality is they're going to continue to buy Russian LNG because there is no alternative. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. And if you want to help me, click on the thanks button at the bottom of the screen and make a donation. I'll see you all again soon. Thank you.